Those flames swallowed my grandfather's 80-year-old cabin, while Karen, our HOA president, laughed like a lunatic. Fire trucks sat blocked at the entrance siren screaming while her crew parked their pickups in a perfect barricade. My home turned to ash in front of the whole neighborhood, and she shouted across the night, "Grant, everything you own is nothing but ashes now." What she didn't know was that 2 hours before those flames I'd already signed a document that guaranteed her downfall. Let me rewind. My name's Caleb Grant. I'm 40, an architect who grew up at Pine Lake Estates. That cabin wasn't just a house, it was the place my grandfather built with his own hands in 1943. I learned carpentry there, read weather off the lake with him, even got my first drafting table under its roof. To me, it was heritage, not just property. Then came Marjorie Flint, our own HOA Karen. She'd only lived here 5 months before climbing her way to president, flashing her law degree like a sword intimidating retirees with words they couldn't even pronounce. One morning, she strutted onto my porch, uninvited, dumped a folder of papers across my coffee table, and smiled like she owned me. "Your cabin violates 12 standards. 30 days to comply or demolition," she announced. I set my mug down, pulled out my own folder with the original deed and grandfather clause protections, and calmly told her she had no jurisdiction. For a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Hatred, maybe panic, but she kept smiling that lawyer's smile. From then on, the war began. Tickets for parking in the same spot I'd used 15 years. $500 a day and fines for my lawn that was already immaculate. Then the water cut off, then the power. They claimed emergency repairs, funny how it only affected my place. At community meetings, she painted me as the selfish holdout, the guy blocking progress. She promised a resort would raise everyone's property value 40%, made PowerPoints with glossy renderings, and never had to say my name. Everybody knew who the villain of her story was. I could feel neighbors' stares cutting into me when I walked by. The last straw was a letter on HOA letterhead: "Demolish your cabin in 72 hours, or we'll do it for you and bill you." That was the night I hired attorney Elena Foster. She dug in, and what she found chilled me. Marjorie had secretly bought up 65% of HOA votes through shell companies. That meant she wasn't just president, she was dictator. And behind her, a development company called Blackwood, famous for buying communities cheap and flipping them into resorts worth millions. My fight wasn't about one cabin anymore. It was about an entire community being sold off. Still, there were nights I doubted myself. Sitting on that porch, watching the lake turn gold with sunrise, I thought maybe I was crazy. Maybe I should just sell and move on, stop being the stubborn fool everyone said I was. The HOA fines were bleeding me dry, my neighbors hated me, and Marjorie's smile haunted every corner. Was I protecting a home, or just my own ego? For the first time, I wanted to give up. But I remembered my grandfather's words: when you meet a bully, don't just get mad. Think 3 steps ahead. That echo pulled me back. So I started planning. I built a concrete vault under my cabin, fireproof like a bank safe. Every important document, every piece of evidence went down there. I installed hidden cameras, microphones, even slipped a GPS tracker into a binder inside my upstairs filing cabinet. That cabinet was bait. Ray Morrison. My old college roommate turned state investigator joined in. He uncovered Marjorie's history, suspended from law for falsifying deeds in Florida, 2 HOA scams in California and Nevada. Same pattern: harass old folks, force sales, flip property. She wasn't just a tyrant, she was a repeat predator. We also discovered Blackwood's finances, billions laundered through resorts, politicians on their payroll, whole communities wiped out. And suddenly, my fight felt bigger than me again. Then came the night of fire. My cameras caught her creeping with 2 men carrying a black box wired with precision. Through my microphones, I heard her whisper, "Burn the documents." If the cabin catches fire, 2 acceptable collateral. They set, the timer walked away, and 45 minutes later, boom. A blast like thunder ripped my cabin apart. Flames shot through the roof, heat seared my face from 50 yards, and Marjorie stood back laughing, screaming. This is my victory. Meanwhile, her cronies blocked the fire trucks at the gate. 12 precious minutes stolen while my home burned to the ground. But the joke was on her, because my important cabinet upstairs was stuffed with old magazines and expired insurance policies. The real evidence slept 20 feet underground in my vault while every move she made was recorded in high-definition video and audio. I watched my family's cabin collapse into embers, but I smiled through the smoke. She thought she'd won, but she'd just written her own confession. The next morning, Elena leaned across her desk, eyes steady, and said, "There's something I haven't told you. I'm Special Agent Foster, FBI Financial Crimes. We've been after Blackwood for 8 months. I nearly choked. The woman I thought was a property lawyer pulled out a federal badge. My little HOA dispute had become part of a $50 million money laundering scheme. She needed me to keep playing the victim to lure Marjorie into exposing herself further. It didn't take long. 3 days later, Marjorie called an emergency meeting. The flyers accused me of insurance fraud, said I burned my own cabin. I walked into the hall packed with angry neighbors glaring like I was a criminal. Marjorie had to slides doctored footage of me working late fake financial records showing me desperate for cash. She spoke with the confidence of a prosecutor. Ladies and gentlemen, Caleb Grant torched his own home. The room buzzed with whispers, and for a moment I felt the old weight pressing down again. Then I stood up. "Mrs. Flint," I said, my voice calm but carrying. "You mentioned the fire reached maximum intensity in 30 seconds, and you know the exact time it started at 3:15 a.m. How do you know that the fire marshal's report isn't public?" Her face twitched. She stammered something about common sense. The crowd shifted uneasily. I pressed again. "And how do you know what accelerants were used unless you were there?" That's when Mrs. Hayes, 82 years old, my closest neighbor, rose from the back. She held up her phone and declared, "Because I filmed her." 47 minutes. I watched Marjorie place that device under his porch. The room erupted. People shouted, phones whipped out to record neighbors who'd doubted me. Now stared at Marjorie like she was a monster. Marjorie snapped, screaming, "You fools don't understand this resort would make us all rich. He's the selfish one." And just like that, she admitted the conspiracy in front of everyone. Then Elena stood and flashed her FBI badge. Gasps echoed. She announced Blackwood had been arrested at the airport hours earlier, his assets frozen, his empire collapsed. The room spun into chaos. Marjorie's face drained pale. Then, in a last desperate move, she pulled a small remote from her purse and hissed, "If I can't have Pine Lake, nobody can. I've planted 6 more devices." Time slowed. FBI agents stormed the building ordering evacuations. Bomb squads swept the neighborhood, and one by one they disarmed 6 professional incendiary devices hidden around homes. All while, Marjorie clutched that remote, shaking, screaming about respect and money she'd lost in her divorce, about how Blackwood promised her power. Eventually, Ray Morrison, steady as ever, coaxed her into surrendering. And when Elena revealed that Blackwood's company was bankrupt, that he never planned to pay her a dime, Marjorie collapsed into a chair, sobbing. The Queen turned beggar. She was charged with arson, conspiracy, federal terrorism. Blackwood got 18 years. $50 million seized to repay victims. The sheriff and county commissioner resigned in disgrace, exposed for taking bribes. And me, I stood on the ashes of my cabin, not victorious, not happy, but alive with justice carved out of fire and smoke. Because here's the truth. Bullies with power think they can take everything from you. But if you stay 3 steps ahead, if you refuse to fold even the loudest, Karen will choke on her own schemes.